Commander Olivia Carter stood motionless as two highway officers forced her arms behind her back, metal cuffs biting into her wrists. A thin stream of blood slid down her cheek. With a subtle double tap on her smartwatch, she initiated protocol Sentinel 9. A faint smile crossed her lips. Gentlemen, you have 17 minutes to reconsider. Before we dive into this riveting account of resilience and transformation, drop your location in the comments. Smash that like button and subscribe if you're ready to witness how one woman's unshakable calm in the face of abuse forever altered policing in America. Now let's rewind the clock to discover how Commander Carter reached this pivotal moment. Late afternoon sun stretched across the asphalt as Olivia guided her metallic gray hatchback down Interstate 20 toward Atlanta. After nearly 2 decades of service in the U.S. Navy, 2 deployments in the Persian Gulf, a humanitarian mission in Haiti, today marked an extraordinary milestone. Her promotion ceremony had concluded only hours earlier, punctuated by speeches praising her decorated career. Dressed in her freshly pressed naval officer's uniform, the new silver oak leaves glinting on her shoulders, Olivia drove with quiet pride. At 42, she carried the weight of experience, scars visible and invisible. Her family, who had flown from Detroit to celebrate, waited eagerly at home. Then flashing blue lights flared in her rearview mirror without warning. She checked her speedometer, 64 in a 65 zone, no violation. With composed efficiency, she signaled and eased onto the shoulder, hands positioned firmly at 10 and 2. Her father's voice echoed in memory. Being black means you don't get second chances. Show your hands. Stay calm. That advice had shaped every interaction behind the wheel. Two officers approached, one to each side. The taller man, his badge reflecting the fading light, rapped on the glass with deliberate aggression. Olivia lowered the window smoothly. Good evening, officer. Patrolman Jason Miller scanned her interior suspiciously, eyes darting like searchlights. His partner, Officer Stephen Ward, hovered near the passenger door, hand grazing his weapon. License and registration, Miller demanded, his clipped tone cutting through the hum of passing cars. Olivia's voice remained even. My license is in my wallet, registration in the glove box. I'll retrieve them now. Miller responded sharply. Why, do it quickly. She carefully presented her documents, along with her Navy identification. Miller frowned, unimpressed. This isn't a driver's license. It's my active duty identification, Olivia explained. Commander Olivia Carter, United States Navy, stationed at Naval Submarine Base, Kings Bay. Just leaving a promotion ceremony, Miller exchanged a telling glance with Ward, one that made Olivia's gut tighten. Step out of the vehicle, Miller ordered coldly. On what grounds? She asked. Your plates look suspicious. Possible impersonation? Understanding the futility of protest, Olivia unbuckled and stepped out, her posture sharp with military precision. The image was striking, a decorated commander in full dress uniform, medals aligned neatly across her chest, standing tall against two suspicious officers. Gentlemen, she said evenly, my credentials can be verified with Captain Elena Ramirez, my commanding officer at Kings Bay. Ward sneered, his tone dripping sarcasm. Are you instructing us on procedure, Commander? Olivia met his eyes without flinching. Not at all. Simply offering you a direct means of confirmation. Miller circled her car, palm trailing across the trunk. What's in here? You seem nervous, Olivia replied calmly. Dress uniform, ceremonial items, personal belongings. Nothing more. Hands on the car, Miller barked suddenly. Olivia blinked. Excuse me? Hands on the car now. His hand hovered near his holster. Without hesitation, Olivia complied, palms pressed firmly on the hood. Officer, may I ask the reason for detention? Miller snapped. Stop resisting authority. Though she hadn't moved, Ward began a rough, invasive search. Olivia's tone remained firm. I am a naval officer returning from base. This stop appears unwarranted. I'll need to notify my commanding officer. Miller seized her arm viciously. You're not making calls here. You don't issue orders to us. He slammed her head against the car, blood seeping quickly. Stop resisting, he shouted. I'm not resisting, she breathed. Passing vehicles slowed, some even stopping. Olivia noted witnesses. Good. The officers muttered slurs under their breath, words sharpened with hatred. These people think a uniform makes them heroes, Ward spat. Miller smirked. Probably just some diversity promotion. Olivia stayed silent, training taking over. Assess, strategize, execute. With subtle precision, she tapped her smartwatch. 3 short, 2 long. Sentinel 9. Memory rushed in. Southside Chicago, age 15. A mall cop tailing her and her friends, suspicion written across his face. Her father's words that night, the world isn't fair, baby. But you're strong. Keep your dignity. That's one thing no one can strip away. Her father's lesson became her compass as Miller yanked her upright again. You think that uniform makes you special? Miller sneered. You people are all the same underneath. Olivia said nothing, silently counting the protocol stages. 3 minutes. Alerts triggered. 7 minutes. First responders dispatched. 12 minutes. Command notified. 17 minutes. Full tactical deployment. Miller and Ward squabbled over fabricated charges when the first unmarked SUV rolled silently behind them. They didn't notice at first, too busy justifying their aggression. Another SUV arrived, then another, forming a perimeter. Plainclothes operatives stepped out, measured, composed, unmistakably military. Ward finally whispered, Jason, we've got company. Miller turned, his arrogance shifting to confusion as more vehicles sealed the roadside. Olivia allowed herself the faintest smile. Their error was now undeniable. Protocol Sentinel 9 was in motion, a classified safeguard Olivia herself had helped refine after repeated harassment of minority service members. The officers had no idea the system she'd discreetly activated had already notified Naval Security Forces, the Department of Justice, and the Civil Rights Division. Satellites now focused overhead, recording every detail in crystalline clarity. What the hell is this? Miller barked, panic cracking his voice. A lean man in a slate gray suit approached steadily. Officer Miller, keep your hands visible. The calm authority in his tone rattled the officer. How do you know my name? Miller stammered. The man ignored him, turning instead to Olivia. Commander Carter, are you injured? Miller cut in quickly. She was being detained for questioning authority, possibly impersonating a service member. The suited man's gaze shifted like ice. Officer Miller, I am Special Agent Jonathan Pierce, Department of Defense. Commander Carter activated Sentinel 9, a federal security measure overriding your jurisdiction. Commander, please confirm. Injury status? Olivia responded crisply. Minor head wound, sir. Pierce nodded and spoke into his wrist mic. Medical on site. Documentation active. Within moments, medics with kits moved toward Olivia, while others began photographing the scene. Ward stammered nervously. Look, this was just a traffic stop gone sideways. No need for this operation. More vehicles arrived. Naval security, federal unmarked units, each step tightening the circle. Miller attempted to reclaim control. The suspect resisted commands. Pierce cut him off, voice flat. Commander Carter is not a suspect. She is a decorated naval officer, assaulted while in uniform. Miller blanched. Pierce continued. Satellite feed at 1842, 17 local records you slamming her against the vehicle. Calculated velocity matches the injury being treated right now. Miller's mouth fell open. Behind Olivia, a medic whispered into comms. Minor traumatic cranial impact, consistent with blunt force vehicle contact. The documentation was airtight. Ward, realizing the collapse of their authority, moved toward Olivia with cuff keys. We'll release her now, settle this misunderstanding. 2 naval security officers intercepted him instantly, steel in their eyes. The protocol held firm. Olivia breathed steadily as the scene shifted around her. Civilians snapping photos, federal agents documenting every second, officers Miller and Ward reduced to stammering disbelief. She understood this wasn't merely about her safety, it was about drawing a line. Today, the system they'd abused would answer for itself, and Sentinel 9 was only beginning to deliver justice. She could feel the presence of law itself reshaping around her. What once might have ended in silence, injury, and dismissal now unfolded in full public view. Every slur, every strike, every unjustified order was archived forever. Olivia Carter, 42 Navy commander, stood taller despite the sting at her temple, dignity intact, protocol Sentinel 9 complete. Agents flanked her, documenting angles of impact. Medics gently examined her wound. The roadside had transformed into a command post, one designed to hold power accountable. Miller muttered, you can't actually. But Pierce's voice cut through again. Evidence confirms every action, officer. This case has already left your control. Miller's authority crumbled. Olivia's calm endured. The distant sound of more sirens grew louder. Backup for the protocol, not the officers. Olivia glanced upward, imagining the satellite lens capturing it all. She knew her father would have been proud. Dignity, baby, he'd always said. And in this moment, bound by cuffs but liberated by truth, dignity was her unshakable shield. Miller's voice cracked. This isn't. This can't. But Pierce ignored him. His focus remained on Olivia. Commander, we'll have you transported to medical for further evaluation. A formal inquiry will begin immediately, Olivia straightened, her training evident even under duress. Understood, sir. The protocol's machinery pressed on, relentless and exacting, ensuring justice would not be denied. Medics confirmed. Minor laceration, cranial tenderness, stable vitals. Pierce relayed calmly, medical secured, documentation ongoing. Around them, officers Ward and Miller shrank under the mounting evidence. What had begun as a fabricated stop had ignited a systemic reckoning. Olivia Carter stood at its center, silent, composed, embodying every lesson of service, sacrifice, and dignity. Ward's desperate voice broke through. Look, we can just let her go, no harm done. But harm had been done, recorded, analyzed, verified. More vehicles arrived, one bearing Department of Justice insignia. Another bore the crest of naval intelligence. Every agency necessary to enforce truth was now present. The weight of law pressed heavy upon the guilty. Pierce's tone was final. This incident is no longer under local jurisdiction. Commander Carter remains under federal protection. Officers Miller and Ward, you will be processed accordingly. Miller shook his head in disbelief, sweat dripping down his brow. Olivia remained silent, her breathing steady, as the once hostile roadside had transformed into a crucible of accountability. For Olivia, every second confirmed the necessity of Sentinel 9. The system existed because too many before her had suffered unseen. Now, with satellites watching and federal forces recording, there would be no erasure, no dismissal. A new chapter was unfolding. She felt her father's presence again, dignity preserved, truth undeniable, justice inevitable. Behind her, one medic reported quietly into comms. Confirmed minor head trauma, consistent with vehicle impact. The words sealed the record. In the span of 17 minutes, Olivia Carter had endured brutality, invoked Sentinel 9, and witnessed an unprecedented federal response. Bound in cuffs, blood on her temple, she stood unbroken. The tide had turned forever. Preserve all physical evidence, one investigator declared sharply. The restraints will be cataloged and secured by forensics. Olivia's mind flicked back to 6 months earlier, to a strategy session where she argued for broadening Sentinel 9. She had presented case after case of black service members harassed or harmed by officers while in uniform. It's not enough to review incidents after they happen, she had insisted to a panel of flag officers. We need immediate intervention and indisputable proof. Admiral Elena Ramirez, her commanding officer, had backed her against skeptics. This isn't just about protecting sailors, Ramirez said firmly. It's about defending the dignity of the uniform itself. That memory steadied Olivia now, blood drying at her temple as Sentinel 9 methodically stripped away the officer's authority. Special Agent Pierce received a call, listening intently before leveling his gaze at Miller and Ward. Admiral Ramirez, Commander Carter's CO, is currently on the line with your police chief. He extended a secure phone. Miller accepted it reluctantly, his face blanching as he absorbed the words on the other end. Meanwhile, a technician approached Pierce. Sir, we've locked down the dash cam feed and begun remote extraction of body cam data. Pierce nodded. And overhead? Full satellite coverage from 3 minutes prior to contact until now, sir. Pierce's expression hardened. Witness recordings? Already secured, the tech confirmed. Ward overheard, shoulders sagging. Miller ended his call, returning the phone with trembling hands. There's been a mistake, he muttered. Our chief says release her immediately and return to station. Pierce shook his head. That won't happen. You'll remain here until documentation is complete. As he spoke, rotor blades thundered above. A Navy helicopter, not a police chopper, hovered into position, underscoring the seriousness of the moment. Forensics personnel carefully removed Olivia's cuffs, sealing them in evidence bags. Medics continued tending her wound while photographers circled, capturing every angle of injury. Olivia stayed composed, embodying the discipline she preached. Through it all, she watched her creation operate flawlessly. 30 minutes after she had pressed her watch, a black SUV rolled up bearing federal plates. Out stepped Admiral Ramirez, her expression controlled fury. She scanned the chaotic scene, eyes finally softening only when they rested on Olivia. Commander Carter, she said, voice lined with respect. I regret my delay. Olivia, despite the ache in her head, straightened to attention. No apology required, Admiral. Ramirez turned on Miller and Ward, who now looked diminished in the glare of military and federal presence. Her voice was quiet, almost deadly. Do you two have any understanding of what you've done here today? Neither spoke. Ramirez continued. You assaulted a decorated naval officer. You trampled her civil rights. You mocked the uniform of the United States military. And you triggered a federal protocol that will dissect your conduct, your department's practices, and your personal histories down to the smallest detail. Ward's lips parted, but no words came. Miller finally stammered, Ma'am, we were simply following procedure for suspicious. Ramirez cut him off like a blade. Commander Carter has served in the Persian Gulf on humanitarian missions, awarded multiple commendations for valor, and today she was promoted for designing protocols, safeguarding service members, the very protocol now dismantling your authority. Ward paled visibly. We didn't know, Ward whispered. Ramirez's eyes narrowed. That is exactly the issue. You didn't know because you refused to see the person in front of you. You only saw what your prejudice allowed. She pivoted back to Olivia. Commander, are you ready to proceed with full execution of Sentinel 9? Olivia stood taller. Yes, Admiral. I am. Ramirez gave a sharp nod. Then proceed. Gather all digital records. Initiate deep background checks. Every file, every message, nothing buried, nothing diluted, nothing forgotten. Her gaze cut back to Miller and Ward. Understand, this incident will echo. It will not be excused. Olivia's father's words resurfaced. Dignity cannot be stolen. And she realized she had gone beyond mere dignity. She had turned brutality into reckoning. Just then, inside City Hall, Police Chief David Harlan slammed his office door so hard, framed diplomas rattled. 31 years on the force, 7 as chief, and never had he faced such a nightmare. Calls poured in without pause. The mayor, the council, the state house, the union, the press, all demanded answers he didn't have. Across from him sat Internal Affairs Captain Gloria Morales, who looked like she'd rather vanish. Tell me again, Harlan snapped, pacing. What's happening out there? Morales read from her tablet. Officers Miller and Ward initiated a traffic stop on Commander Olivia Carter, U.S. Navy. The stop escalated physically, resulting in Commander Carter's head injury and restraints. She then triggered Sentinel 9, a military emergency system. Harlan scrubbed his scalp with both hands. And now federal agents and Navy personnel are embedded across our systems. They've placed Miller and Ward on immediate leave, pending investigation. Harlan's voice cracked. By whose authority? Technically yours, Morales said, sliding a signed document across. You approved a federal military cooperation clause last year. Page 6, Section 4. Harlan ignored the paperwork. Miller and Ward are solid cops. I've known Miller since his academy days. Morales hesitated. Chief, preliminary evidence shows otherwise. She rotated her tablet, displaying a still from the dash cam. It showed Miller slamming Olivia's head into her vehicle, her navy dress uniform, and medals unmistakable. Harlan's stomach dropped. There has to be context. There's more, Morales added grimly. The feds pulled surveillance from businesses, collected 17 civilian recordings, plus satellite imagery, and they're digging into every officer's history, starting with Miller and Ward. The chief's phone rang again. It was the mayor. Harlan answered curtly, Not now. I'm in a meeting. The mayor's voice roared through the receiver, audible to Morales. Not now. Dan, I've got the governor on hold and reporters outside City Hall. Fix this. The line went dead. Harlan placed the phone down carefully, as if it might explode in his hand. Get the union rep, he ordered. Find me something, anything, that explains why my officers would treat a uniformed naval commander this way. Morales paused at the door. Chief, the feds requested all of Miller and Ward's traffic stop records for the last 3 years. They're examining demographic breakdowns. Harlan felt the blood drain from his face. Demographics? Yes, Chief. Race Morales departed to summon the union, leaving Harlan alone with dread. He pulled up their personnel files, clean on the surface, a handful of complaints, all dismissed, nothing matching the brutality on that dash cam. His door opened again. Union Representative Michael Donovan entered with a nervous IT analyst in tow. Chief, Donovan started, we need to go public. The Union will back our men and challenge military jurisdiction. Harlan shook his head. Not yet. I need facts. He turned to the IT specialist. What do you have? The young analyst shifted uncomfortably. Sir, I reviewed the database. Their stop records show a serious statistical anomaly. What anomaly? Harlan pressed. Miller and Ward pull over black drivers nearly 4 times as often as other officers in the same patrol zones. Their arrest rate of black individuals after routine stops is 6 times higher than departmental averages. Donovan bristled. That doesn't prove bias. They just patrol higher crime areas, that's all. The analyst shook his head. I normalized for patrol areas and activity levels. The discrepancy holds. Sir, it's significant. Harlan rubbed his temples. A migraine building. What about today's body cams? The analyst grimaced. That's another problem. Both units show gaps. Miller's device malfunctioned right when Commander Carter sustained her injury. Harlan muttered, How convenient. Donovan leaned forward. Chief, we can't cave. Whatever this Sentinel 9 thing is, it's an overblown stunt. We stand by our officers, issue a statement, let this commander cool off, and it vanishes. But the door opened without a knock. Assistant Chief Leonard Price stepped inside, face grim. It's not vanishing, Mike. It's exploding. Donovan blinked. What do you mean? Price set his phone on the desk. The media has it. All of it. Harlan stiffened. How? Leak? The dash cam footage of Miller slamming Carter's head into her car just hit national outlets. It's viral. Harlan sagged into his chair, dreading the next words. How bad? Price pressed play on his phone. A news site blared across the screen. Headline stark. Decorated Black Navy commander assaulted by police while in uniform. Video rolled beneath, the image unmistakable. The story had escaped their control. Public opinion would not wait for reports or excuses. The reckoning had already begun. Harlan stared at the footage, his pulse racing. Everything, the department's reputation, his career, maybe even the city's fragile peace, teetered on collapse. Donovan tried again. We fight back. Question authenticity, deny context. Harlan shook his head slowly. The cameras, the satellites, the witnesses. We can't bury this. The IT analyst swallowed. Sir, it's just the beginning. Explain. The analyst spoke carefully. Federal teams are mirroring our entire database. They're pulling body cam archives, personnel files, even private communications. They're investigating at maximum depth. And the numbers, Miller and Ward's stops, are already spreading online. Data activists are picking it up. Donovan cursed under his breath. This is a witch hunt. Call it what you want, the analyst said quietly, but the evidence is damning. Harlan's headache pulsed stronger. He could feel the city unraveling from his office chair. The body cam malfunctions, the racial disparities, the dash cam image, all of it stacked like charges on a detonator. The boom was inevitable, and the fuse was burning. Chief, Donovan pressed, the Union will shield them. We'll flood the airwaves with statements. This protocol thing won't hold in civilian courts. Price cut him off. Mike, look at the screen. He gestured to the viral headline again. This isn't about courts anymore. It's about optics, politics, public trust. And we're already drowning. Harlan slumped forward, elbows on the desk. What about the governor? He's demanding updates hourly, Price said grimly. The mayor's office is besieged. Protest groups are mobilizing already, and with that footage out, nothing we say will undo it. Donovan sat back, fuming. Then we fight. Dirty. Morales re-entered, face pale. Chief, it's worse. She held out her phone. Every major network is looping the footage. Commentators are calling it a national disgrace. Headlines are uniform. Decorated Navy officer, assaulted while in dress uniform. It's everywhere. Silence consumed the office as the truth settled in. The story had slipped beyond their grip. The reckoning was no longer avoidable. On every screen, an image of Commander Olivia Carter appeared, blood streaking her face, handcuffed against her car, her metals stark in the sunlight. It gets worse, Deputy Chief Price muttered. They've published her record. 2 Persian Gulf tours, Navy Cross, Purple Heart. She once threw herself on what she thought was a live grenade. It turned out inert, but she didn't know that. Chief Harlan exhaled, whispering, Good God. Price pressed on. And Reynolds and Ward's stop data just leaked. CNN is running with racial profiling in our department. Donovan's phone buzzed. He paled. The union's pivoting, supporting the majority, but abandoning Reynolds and Ward. Harlan muttered, throwing them under the bus. Price added, the Navy's demanding full personnel files on both officers, and they've forwarded Carter's medical report. Concussion, 6 stitches, multiple contusions. Harlan stared at her photograph, her face resolute, blood marring the crisp white of her dress uniform. What were they thinking? A knock at the door. Morales entered. Chief, Admiral Ramirez is here. Harlan nodded numbly. Morales hesitated. She's not alone. She brought Commander Carter and what looks like an entire legal team. Harlan braced himself. His phone rang again. Department of Justice Civil Rights Division glowing on the screen. The walls felt as though they were closing in. Ramirez entered without pause. Chief Harlan, Ramirez said, voice icy calm. I believe you have something belonging to my officer. A junior aide placed an evidence bag on the desk. Inside was Carter's Navy ID, the same one Miller had dismissed. Olivia herself followed, posture precise despite the bandage across her temple, flanked by 3 attorneys with briefcases. Harlan rose, extending a hand. Commander Carter, I want to... Save it, Ramirez interrupted. We aren't here for apologies. We're here to outline how this proceeds. She gestured to one of the attorneys. The woman stepped forward briskly. Chief, I'm Colonel Sarah Mitchell, JAG Corps, we are formally demanding complete records on Officers Miller and Ward. Not just personnel files, but private communications, training logs, stop histories. Additionally, we'll be reviewing departmental policies and demographic patterns in enforcement. Harlan glanced at Donovan, who only shrugged, helpless. We'll comply, Harlan murmured. Olivia's voice cut in for the first time, steady, sharp. Will you, Chief? Because discrepancies already exist. Missing files, edited camera footage, convenient gaps. Harlan felt sweat forming. Commander, I assure you. Your assurances mean nothing, Olivia interrupted calmly. Your men slammed me against a vehicle in full uniform. They ignored my ID, mocked my rank, used slurs they assumed I couldn't hear. And now evidence is vanishing. But Sentinel 9 doesn't rely on your chain of custody. Ramirez placed a steadying hand on Olivia's shoulder. Commander Carter has refused every settlement or non-disclosure offer. She demands accountability. Public accountability. Price's phone buzzed again. He looked up grimly. Chief, new leak. Messages between Miller and Ward from last year. Explicit racism. References to targeting black drivers. Even jokes about fabricating charges. Harlan closed his eyes briefly. When he opened them, Olivia's gaze locked onto his, unwavering. This isn't just about me, she said softly. How many others endured abuse without a protocol to protect them? How many lives have your officers scarred, dismissed, silenced? And how long have you looked away? The room fell silent, the questions unanswerable. Harlan knew at once his department would never return to the status quo. The question wasn't if there'd be consequences, but how deep they would cut. Are you shocked by this unfolding story? Comment 1 if you think Harlan knew all along, or 2 if he was truly blind. The narrative had crossed into public trial. This crisis raised hard questions. Should chiefs be accountable for officers' misconduct? Like and subscribe for more stories of resilience against injustice. Morning sunlight slanted through blind at the FBI field office, where Special Agent Camila Rodriguez spread files across a table. 2 weeks had passed since Carter's stop, and the investigation had grown immense. Rodriguez, a decade-long veteran of the Civil Rights Division, led the inquiry. What we're seeing is systemic, she told her team. Miller and Ward didn't just stumble on Commander Carter. They've been profiling minorities for years. On the wall, a map with red and blue pins illustrated the disparity. Clusters of red arrests where black drivers traveled. Blue pins, white drivers, were scattered more evenly. The imbalance was undeniable. And this, Rodriguez continued, sliding a document forward, is what naval intelligence found in Miller's email. The printout revealed racist exchanges between Miller, Ward, and others, filled with slurs and explicit targeting of minority drivers. They called it hunting, Rodriguez said grimly, strategically waiting along commuter routes. Across town, Olivia sat in Admiral Ramirez's office at Kings Bay, reviewing another set of papers. Despite lingering dizziness, she refused downtime. Duty remained. Ramirez tossed aside a preliminary Charleston police report. They're calling this isolated. Two bad actors, nothing systemic. Olivia shook her head, unsurprised. Ramirez's voice hardened. Our investigation tells a darker story. Military analysts intercepted 6,000 text messages, 1,500 emails, even reconstructed deleted posts, a pattern of racist intent stretching back years. And worse, Commander Ramirez hesitated. They targeted service members. 27 minority sailors or soldiers stopped in 18 months. Most never reported. They simply endured. Olivia's jaw clenched. Before she could respond, a knock sounded. Colonel Mitchell from JAG stepped in, carrying a heavy binder. The Justice Department is expanding scope. They're activating their Pattern and Practice Division to scrutinize Charleston PD in its entirety. Ramirez's brows rose. That level of oversight could put the department under federal monitorship. Exactly, Mitchell confirmed. And they're requesting your cooperation, Commander, as a central witness. Olivia straightened immediately. Of course. Whatever they require, Mitchell hesitated. There's more. The Union has shifted strategy. Instead of defending Miller and Ward, they're trying to discredit you. She laid down documents. They've leaked fragments of your Navy record, specifically the Afghanistan disciplinary hearing. Olivia's jaw flexed. She remembered it well, refusing orders that endangered civilians. That same superior officer had later faced court-martial for human rights abuses, but taken out of context, it painted her as insubordinate. Ramirez frowned. Classic tactic. Shift the narrative. Attack character. Instead of facts, Mitchell nodded. They'll claim you're biased against law enforcement pushing an agenda. Olivia exhaled steadily. Let them try. My record is intact. Across the city, Chief Harlan faced collapse. The mayor convened an emergency council session after receiving federal findings. This isn't two rogue cops, the mayor declared, pacing furiously. The feds identified 14 officers with similar patterns. 14, David. That's nearly 20% of patrol. Harlan sat silent, crushed. The avalanche of evidence only grew daily. What began with Carter's stop had cracked a dam. Victims emerged in droves, mostly black residents, who had endured identical treatment but lacked resources to fight. There's more, the city attorney said, face ashen. Commander Carter's grandfather was Sergeant William Carter, 92nd Infantry Division, a Buffalo soldier in World War II. The room fell hushed with history's weight. The attorney continued softly. He returned from war in 1946, only to be beaten by police here in Charleston while still in uniform. No charges filed. The parallel was devastating. 3 generations of service, met with brutality in the same city. Harlan shut his eyes, feeling the legacy press against him like a vice. Across town, inside a federal building, Special Agent Rodriguez sat opposite Officer Ward. Unlike Miller, Ward had cracked. Seeking leniency, he'd begun cooperating. His eyes darted nervously as Rodriguez slid files across the table, emails, texts, maps. You called it hunting, she said evenly. Explain to me, Officer Ward. Who taught you, and how far does this go? Ward licked his lips, glancing at the camera recording every moment. It wasn't just us, he muttered. Others too. Everyone knew. Certain routes, certain nights. We'd joke about it. But Miller, he pushed it further. He said military folks were the best catches, always respectful, always easy to control. Rodriguez's jaw tightened, but she remained calm. Names, she pressed. Patterns. Who else is involved? Ward hesitated, sweat forming. He knew cooperation was his only hope. Across the city, Olivia Carter sat in Ramirez's office, her grandfather's photograph now in front of her. A Buffalo soldier, a war hero, beaten in uniform. The generational echo was undeniable. Dignity had always been their shield. Ramirez spoke with quiet intensity. They tried to smear you, Commander, but history is on your side. From your grandfather to you, the uniform deserves respect. Olivia nodded, her mind sharpening. She was no longer just a victim. She was now a witness, a symbol, and a catalyst. Sentinel-9 had sparked something irreversible. The federal investigation widened, uncovering layers of misconduct, doctored reports, missing footage, racist group chats. At every level, rot emerged, yet Olivia refused to bend. Let them twist my record, she told Ramirez. The truth will hold. Outside protests swelled, citizens marching with signs demanding justice. The city's streets echoed with chants of accountability. At City Hall, Harlan sat slumped as the council grilled him. How long did you know? Why wasn't it stopped? His answers faltered, drowned by outrage. The mayor leaned in. This isn't survivable, David. The department is under siege. Federal monitorship is inevitable. Harlan's career, 30 years of service, was evaporating in real time, undone by truth. Back at the federal building, Rodriguez tightened her focus on Ward. Did you ever consider the consequences? She asked. His gaze fell to the table. We never thought anyone would fight back. Not like her. He meant Olivia. Rodriguez leaned closer. That's where you were wrong. And that's why this is only beginning. She gestured to stacks of evidence filling the room: emails, texts, maps, complaints once ignored. This isn't an isolated case. It's systemic, and it ends now. Ward exhaled shakily, realizing the net closing in. Across town, Olivia Carter stood taller than ever. Her dignity remained intact, but the reckoning had only just begun. Her father's words whispered back across years: "Dignity is your shield." She had carried it through war zones, across oceans, and now onto the streets of Charleston. The system that once silenced service members now roared with their voices. Sentinel 9 had proven unbreakable. Justice, at last, was no longer optional. At that same hour, Agent Rodriguez continued the interview. Officer Ward's hands shook as he admitted names, patterns, rituals of profiling long concealed. Each word sealed another nail in the coffin of denial. For the first time in years, the balance shifted. Commander Olivia Carter's fight was no longer hers alone. It had become a nation's. It wasn't just traffic stops, Ward confessed, voice barely audible. There was a whole system. Miller called it the game: points for categories of stops and arrests, extra for service members, since they stood to lose more if they pushed back. Rodriguez leaned in. And leadership? Ward hesitated. They knew. The numbers screamed it. Our arrest stats for black drivers were off the charts compared to everyone else, Ward continued. No one asked why. Miller even won Officer of the Month 3 times. As the probe widened, Commander Olivia Carter was pulled reluctantly into public view. Interview requests, civil rights outreach, and hashtag in uniform stories flooding timelines from service members nationwide. Despite the pressure, Olivia kept her attention locked on the casework, partnering closely with federal teams to catalog every detail. The breakthrough came a month later when a Charleston PD internal affairs detective approached Rodriguez with a covert flash drive. "I can't be seen handing you this," he said, "but everything you need is inside." The drive was dynamite: training slides, off the books directives, internal messages spanning 5 years. It showed discriminatory practices weren't merely tolerated, they were functionally incentivized through performance metrics that rewarded volume arrests in priority corridors. The evidence revealed a blueprint for skewed policing that had quietly shaped officer behavior and decisions for years. Most damning was an email thread, including Chief Harlan discussing budget increases tied to elevated arrest stats in high-value enforcement zones, thinly coded language for predominantly black neighborhoods. As revelations mounted, national leaders could no longer look away. The Attorney General announced a sweeping inquiry, citing Carter's case as emblematic of deeper constitutional failures. For Olivia, the widening impact of that roadside encounter was both affirming and overwhelming. Alone in her apartment, she studied a photograph of her grandfather, buffalo soldier, uniform crisp, eyes resolute. "We're still fighting," she whispered, "but this time we have proof." Her phone rang. Admiral Ramirez. "Commander, DOJ wants you tomorrow." "Your case may anchor a nationwide review of police interactions with service members of color," Ramirez said. Olivia inhaled, steadying herself. What began as trauma was becoming a fulcrum for reform. "I'll be there, Admiral." After hanging up, she traced the healing scar at her temple. The mark would remain, a permanent reminder and a promise. Perhaps the scar signaled a beginning: accountability, reform, and overdue recognition of a problem many had known, yet few could irrefutably prove. Then the dam burst. Complete dash cam footage, unedited and brutal, leaked online. It captured everything: Olivia's measured professionalism, Miller and Ward's escalating aggression, the head slam that drew blood across immaculate fabric. Within hours, hashtag honor, Commander Carter, and hashtag protect our protectors trended nationwide. The footage's clarity stunned viewers: metals glinting, commands ignored, the sickening thud of impact. Reactions polarized fast. Outside Charleston PD, crowds gathered, placards bearing Olivia's image, veterans caps in formation. Mobilization spread city to city as advocacy groups and military communities found common cause. Veterans organizations issued statements condemning the unconscionable treatment of a decorated officer. Outside Kings Bay, service members, active and retired, formed disciplined lines, silent but unmistakably resolute. Social platforms amplified the demonstration. Split screen edits of Olivia's calm roadside demeanor beside photos from deployments. The contrast cut through talking points like a blade. One image went super viral. Olivia, accepting a Valor Award, beside a still of her bleeding at the patrol car. Caption: she faced enemy fire with courage, then faced hostile policing with the same. For Olivia, the attention felt like standing under a floodlight. She preferred the work, not the spotlight, but decline wasn't realistic anymore. Public Affairs assigned Captain Jessica Morris to help manage the storm. The narrative is largely supportive, Morris briefed, but there's a countercurrent questioning why you triggered a military protocol instead of civilian channels. Olivia nodded. And the threats? Morris winced. Rising. We're elevating security at your home and on base immediately. Backlash wasn't limited to anonymous profiles. Miller and Ward, suspended, facing termination, became martyrs to some. Their families reported harassment. Ward's wife and kids temporarily relocated after their address leaked. Miller's parents, both retired officers, appeared on conservative networks accusing Olivia of orchestrating a setup and vilifying good cops for political gain. Polarization reached state politics. South Carolina's governor demanded sweeping reviews of training and accountability, while several legislators blasted federal overreach. Charleston City Council called an emergency session. Intended as procedural, it turned into a cathartic public forum as hundreds packed the chamber, many pleading for immediate steps and tangible safeguards. A mother stepped to the microphone, voice quivering. My son wears the same uniform as Commander Carter. He serves with honor. Why should he fear the ones sworn to protect? The room fell into a charged hush. As civic pressure intensified, Olivia received an invitation to speak at a national conference on policing and civil rights. Ramirez counseled caution. This goes beyond your duty, Commander. You're not obligated to carry a movement. Olivia considered. With respect, ma'am, I triggered Sentinel 9 knowing scrutiny would follow. If my voice can move policy, it would be irresponsible to fall silent now. Ramirez studied her. You realize this could complicate your career. I do, Admiral, but I can't unring the bell, and I wouldn't if I could. Meanwhile, hashtag Protect Our Protectors surged as service members of all backgrounds shared similar encounters with local police. 2 million posts in a week formed a living archive. Individual testimonies weaving into a nationwide ledger of patterns long overlooked. Veterans groups that initially focused on Olivia's ordeal pivoted toward structural reforms governing police interactions with uniformed personnel, especially those of color. The NAACP and VFW issued an unprecedented joint statement urging national standards for such encounters. Formerly distant constituencies began aligning, civil rights advocates and military organizations speaking unusually with a single voice. Media coverage followed suit, uncovering parallel cases in dozens of jurisdictions. Service members harassed, detained, even assaulted while in uniform. Few had reached daylight, and even fewer had been resolved justly. Through it all, Olivia kept bearing, present at hearings, diligent in briefings, scarce on interviews. Her message, when offered, stayed principled. This isn't about retribution, she told a defense publication. It's about accountability and improvement. No one who serves this country should fear those sworn to serve their communities. 6 weeks after the stop, with federal reviews spiraling outward, Olivia accepted one public address to a joint assembly of military leaders and police executives. In full dress uniform, scar visible, she spoke with unflinching clarity. I activated Sentinel 9 not just for myself, but for every service member who's endured similar treatment without recourse. This is not an indictment of all officers. It is a demand for accountability from those who betray their oath and the systems that enable them. Her remarks, broadcast nationwide, resonated beyond institutional lines, touching nerve centers of fairness, duty, and trust. Applause swelled, but Olivia felt no triumph. Real progress would be proven in policies, training, and the lived experiences of those who would come after her, measured not by headlines, but by fewer scars. That evening, returning under escort, Olivia discovered an envelope slipped under her door, despite heightened security. Inside, a handwritten note from Ward's wife. My husband was wrong. He sees it now. Thank you for forcing a reckoning. Our kids will grow up safer. Because of your courage, Olivia placed it beside her grandfather's photo. 2 generations apart, bound by uniform and resolve. The movement had outgrown her story, expanding into deeper conversations about race, service, and justice. As month 3 began, the backlash organized. On City Hall's steps, the union staged a press conference. Rows of officers behind President Donovan, cameras clustered, microphones bristling, the city holding its breath. We support accountability for genuine misconduct, Donovan declared, but we reject political crusades that endanger officer safety and community stability. Questions flashed from reporters about demographic disparities, camera malfunctions, and leaked emails. Donovan dodged specifics, portraying officers as besieged. The optics were powerful, but the data, witnesses, and footage exerted their own relentless gravity. At the FBI field office, Rodriguez reviewed the flash drive's trove again, cross-referencing training content against arrest heat maps. Patterns aligned with eerie precision where priority corridors were emphasized. Disparate stops spiked. In interview rooms, officers corroborated quietly, expectations unspoken yet unmistakable. The alleged few bad apples increasingly resembled an orchard of practices. In Washington, policy staffers began drafting federal guidance for law enforcement military interactions, with special protections for uniformed personnel and mandatory bias training. A Senate committee requested testimony. Olivia's name topped the witness list. Ramirez warned, the higher the platform, the sharper the crossfire. Olivia nodded. Then we'll bring sharper facts. At the national conference, Olivia anchored a panel with trauma surgeons, civil rights lawyers, and chiefs who'd reformed their departments. You don't lose authority by being accountable, she said. You strengthen it. Several chiefs approached afterward, seeking Sentinel-9's playbook for civilian analogs, rapid evidence preservation, third-party documentation, and automatic notifications designed to deter escalation early. Her remarks ricocheted across both communities. Some praised a blueprint for trust, others decried federalized policing by stealth. Olivia ignored the noise, returning to depositions and timelines. Change meant building a meticulous record, brick by brick, timestamp by timestamp, until denial collapsed under the weight of documented truth and measurable disparity. That night, exhaustion pressed on her shoulders. She opened the desk drawer, rereading Ward's wife's note, then studied her grandfather's photo. Courage had a lineage. Duty did too. The road ahead promised hearings, reforms, and backlash in equal measure. But the trajectory felt irreversible, as if history itself had leaned forward to listen. Across Charleston, murals appeared. Olivia, in uniform, head held high. Beside quotes about dignity and service, veterans mentored teens at pop-up clinics. Churches and synagogues hosted forums on policing and bias. The city felt bruised, yes, but also awake, its communities speaking to one another with an urgency that resisted easy cynicism. By the third month's threshold, outrage had matured into organization. The Charleston Police Officers Association addressed the press again. Flanked by officers in formation, Donovan declared, we support accountability for legitimate misconduct. Banks of microphones captured every syllable. Across town, Rodriguez assembled her team. Evidence stacked neatly, testimony scheduled. The next chapter, policy, discipline, oversight, was ready to begin. But what we're seeing now is the vilification of an entire profession over allegations against two officers, Donovan declared. This has drifted from fair inquiry into a witch hunt, endangering public safety. The shift was clear. Stop defending Miller and Ward individually. Start shielding the department and policing itself from systemic blame. Pushback didn't end at microphones. Days after Donovan's presser, cherry picked snippets of Commander Olivia Carter's Navy record surfaced on a conservative site, laser focused on an old Afghanistan disciplinary review, stripped of context and later vindication. The leak aimed to bruise credibility, not illuminate truth, and it landed with calculated viral precision. Carter's History of Insubordination, the headline blared, accompanied by anonymous quotes questioning her judgment and temperament. Admiral Ramirez summoned Olivia immediately. This is coordinated, she said, sliding the printout across her desk. They're preemptively muddying you before DOJ publishes findings? Olivia scanned the piece, face unreadable. They omitted the outcome. Convenient. They also omitted the court martial of Major Benton that validated your stance, Ramirez replied, expression hardening. This isn't about accuracy. It's about seeding doubt. The character assault was merely phase one. Within days, witnesses who'd spoken up reported pressure, patrol cars idling outside homes, sudden tickets for hairline infractions, and pointed knocks at midnight. A college student who filmed the stop found cruisers lingering outside his apartment at odd hours. An elderly couple who'd aided Olivia began collecting citations they swore were fabricated. Meanwhile, evidence inside police custody started malfunctioning. The original dash cam, once secured, returned corrupted on reanalysis. Explanations multiplied, confidence evaporated. More alarming, Ward's personal phone, logged into evidence with texts relevant to the case, was mysteriously wiped to factory settings while under departmental control. They're circling the wagons, Agent Rodriguez told Olivia, inside a secure FBI conference room. This is bigger than two officers. Leadership fingerprints are on the cover up. Olivia nodded, unsurprised. And the federal case? She asked. Moving, Rodriguez said, but every step meets resistance. Witnesses revise statements. Files vanish. Officials go unavailable. Olivia considered the pattern. They're betting outrage fades. If they stall long enough, pressure drops. Rodriguez's mouth tightened. It's a classic play, and too often it works. The squeeze extended into politics. Local leaders who once praised Olivia's courage retreated into safe phrasing, waiting for all the facts, supporting our officers in difficult times. The mayor, formerly loud about accountability, began preaching healing and moving forward, a vocabulary swap that conspicuously sidestepped the word justice. Even inside the Navy, Olivia sensed a chill. Routine admin requests slowed to molasses. A standard clearance refresh, usually rubber stamped, drew unexpected scrutiny. Colleagues who'd been openly supportive got careful, some whispering they'd been advised to keep professional distance. Soft pressure, hard message, step back or be left standing alone. Ramirez remained solidly in Olivia's corner. They want you tired. Accept a payout, sign an NDA, let this dissolve, the Admiral warned. That won't happen, Olivia said. I know, Ramirez answered, but understand the battlefield. This is no longer about a traffic stop. It's about a system fortifying itself against consequence. The point sharpened when Olivia was summoned by Base Commander General Phillips. His office radiated authority, pared down, precise, intimidating. Commander, he began, your quest for justice has grown beyond a roadside event. It's affecting civil military relations, base operations, and careers, yours included. Olivia stood at attention, posture steady, pulse unflinching. There's an offer, Phillips continued. City will fire both officers, run a limited policy review, provide substantial compensation. In exchange, your NDA and a narrowed federal scope confined to Miller and Ward. Olivia didn't blink. Respectfully, sir, I decline. Philip's expression cooled. You may not grasp the stakes of prolongation. Your promotion to captain was tracking smoothly. Now it's under review. Your projected Pentagon assignment is paused. This crusade could cost the career you've built. Olivia's voice stayed even. Sir, if my career can be jeopardized for reporting an assault in uniform, the problem exceeds Charleston PD. That's precisely why I persist. Philip studied her a long beat. Your grandfather, Sergeant William Carter, 92nd Infantry. Olivia nodded. Buffalo Soldiers. Philip stood. I met him once at a veterans ceremony. Remarkable man. He motioned the meeting to a close. Olivia reached the door. Commander, she turned, he'd be proud. The sentiment heartened. The institution's pressure did not. The backlash soon took a darker edge. Miller tried contacting Olivia directly, an email to her personal account, not Navy. Let's settle this privately. She immediately flagged it to Navy security and the FBI. Rodriguez's concerns spiked. Could be coercion, entrapment, or worse. We're increasing your detail and hardening your digital perimeter. Then came tampered evaluation files, new comments questioning judgment and team orientation appearing in her performance record. Ramirez erupted, forced corrections, and opened an internal inquiry. Message received. The system could weaponize paperwork as effectively as batons. Olivia declined and offered transfer for safety and career insulation. She was not moving. She also refused a life altering settlement that demanded silence. Unexpectedly, word broke under the weight of scrutiny and shame. Against Union counsel, without immunity, he approached the FBI with a full account, not just of Olivia's stop, but of years of skewed enforcement. The affidavit began, It wasn't just us. It was Doctrine Ward's testimony named supervisors, field trainers, and command staff. It described unwritten rules, patrol certain corridors, flag certain drivers, manufacture pretexts, feed the monthly numbers. The Union instantly disowned him. An internal memo branding him traitor leaked within hours. Threats against his family escalated. The feds moved them for protection. Ward's crack became a fault line. Other officers, seeing the shift, came forward, some anonymously, some openly, despite risk, painting an architecture of discrimination that NDAS, settlements, and threats could no longer contain. In a rare admission, Olivia told Ramirez, I never wanted a crusade. I wanted accountability. Ramirez nodded. Accountability often requires dismantling machinery. You activated Sentinel-9, Ramirez added, and something bigger, truth in a system accustomed to denial. As institutions pressed harder, Olivia weighed the cost. Career jeopardy, personal security, relentless scrutiny. Was the toll worth the change? Could inertia outlast resolve? The questions gnawed even as her commitment remained immovable. Have you ever stood against a system trying to silence you? A viral caption asked beneath Olivia's photo. Comment 1 if she should keep fighting, 2 if she should settle. The story's chorus swelled. Sacrifice versus survival, principles versus pragmatism. Olivia ignored the polls, focusing on depositions, discovery, and the clockwork of facts. At 3:17 a.m., Rodriguez's secure server pinged, an encrypted drop from an unknown sender. No subject. Under normal protocol, it would sit quarantined. These weren't normal circumstances. She isolated the payload, spun up a sandbox, and opened it. Thousands of files unfolded, emails, texts, memos, training decks, time-stamped, indexed, cross-linked. The trove spanned a decade, most explosive. Unofficial, proactive policing guidance for high-value zones, bureaucratic euphemism for targeting black neighborhoods and drivers. Rodriguez initiated authentication and convened DOJ civil rights at dawn. By noon, validation stacked up. The picture solidified. An embedded system, not aberrant actors, had steered the department's daily practice. The whistleblower signed only Sentinel, but the precision implied high-level systems access. Simultaneously, in a secure location, Ward completed his final deposition before entering witness protection. What began as halting confession had become granular disclosure, discriminatory playbooks, cooked justifications, scrubbed records, and internal communications showing a pattern of pressure from command. He described training vignettes that telegraphed who to stop and how to rationalize shaky pretexts, evaluation criteria that prized numbers over constitutional policing, a scoreboard mentality, monthly stats as currency for promotions and prime assignments. The culture wasn't accidental, it was cultivated. Rodriguez listened, expression flat, pen scratching only for times and names. Elsewhere, sentiment split louder. Some commentators called Sentinel 9 necessary guardrails. Others labeled it militarized encroachment. Olivia's stance stayed constant, evidence first. She prepared for testimony with Ramirez and JAG, drilling timelines and artifacts. We don't argue feelings, she said. We show the record. If the record condemns, reform follows. The mayor floated reconciliation initiatives, but momentum had shifted toward consent decrees and federal monitorship. Community coalitions, once fractured, coordinated demands, transparent data, independent review, real discipline. Olivia kept her appearances limited, choosing rooms where outcomes were forged, depositions, policy sessions, and briefings where language hardened into enforceable standards. Rodriguez's team mapped the leak against prior datasets. Heat maps lined up with priority corridor slides. Spike months matched budget memos. Redacted emails reappeared unredacted in Sentinel's cache. The lattice of proof grew denser, each note a timestamp, each edge a corroboration. Denial shrank to slogans. Facts occupied the field. By sunrise the next day, DOJ drafted expanded subpoenas, while analysts packaged exemplars for a potential pattern and practice suit. Ramirez briefed Navy leadership. Expect national guidance requests. Prepare a Sentinel adjacent framework for civilian agencies. Olivia exhaled once, steady. The scar at her temple had faded, but the memory remained, her fixed point of reference. She drove past the stretch of highway where everything began, helicopters no longer overhead, but truth still circling. In her passenger seat, a folder, witness statements, satellite captures, authenticated emails. Dignity had drawn the perimeter that day. Documentation stormed the interior. Together they formed a shield no talking point could puncture. Back at the field office, Rodriguez greenlit the next phase, targeted interviews for command staff, preservation orders for servers, and coordinated arrests if tampering continued. We proceed by the book, she told her team. We've got the scaffolding. Now we build the case, deliberate, thorough, unassailable. Heads nodded. The work intensified. Before closing her laptop, Rodriguez added one last note to the master timeline. Sentinel leak authenticated. Word deposition complete. DOJ escalation prepared. Across town, Olivia stood at attention before Ramirez's desk. Ready for tomorrow, Commander? The Admiral asked. Olivia's answer was simple, steady, and final. Yes, ma'am. Ready and unwilling to look away. Miller was the worst, Ward admitted, voice thin. But by the department's scoreboard, he was the star. Three-time Officer of the Month, praised for being proactive. Everyone knew the subtext. More crucially, Ward confirmed what leaks implied. The metrics weren't accidents. They rewarded biased stops that leadership quietly celebrated. Chief Harlan and other brass weren't merely asleep at the wheel, Ward continued. They were complicit, shielding discriminatory tactics from scrutiny while privately greenlighting them. As Ward's testimony and the documents raced through federal channels, Commander Olivia Carter received an urgent summons. Admiral Ramirez, JAG counsel, and Special Agent Rodriguez were already waiting. We've hit a tipping point, Ramirez said without ceremony. What landed in the last 24 hours changes everything. Rodriguez briefed Olivia briskly, the leak's breadth, Ward's expanded statements, corroboration chains. This isn't just your stop anymore, Commander. It's a decade-long civil rights architecture, designed, endorsed, and protected at the highest local levels. The Justice Department is preparing a formal pattern or practice action against the entire Charleston Police Department, Rodriguez said. Expect federal monitorship, mandatory reforms, and potential criminal charges, up the chain, including Harlan. Ramirez added, "One more twist. Miller requested to speak with you under supervision." Olivia's eyebrows lifted. "Why would I grant him that?" "He claims to hold material outside his official statements, relevant to other victims, not only you," Ramirez said. Olivia turned to Rodriguez. "You're rid." "He's cornered," Rodriguez answered. "The case against him is overwhelming. This could be bargaining for leniency, or a late stab at conscience. People rarely fit clean boxes, even him." "After layered security planning," Olivia agreed. The meeting took place in a federal building with Miller in custody, agents stationed wall to wall. The man facing her barely resembled the brash officer who'd slammed her head. Jail khakis replaced swagger. His eyes were sunken, confidence evacuated by evidence and consequence. "Commander Carter," he began, voice rasping. "Thank you for coming." Olivia stayed silent. He struggled. "I did things I can't undo. Hurt people who didn't deserve it. Turned a badge into a weapon." He swallowed. "I'm not asking forgiveness. I want to help fix what I can. For others I harmed." "Others?" Olivia prompted. Miller nodded. "There's a database, off network, never on city servers. Every dirty stop, trumped up charge, excessive force report, logged and preserved. Insurance, they called it. If one cop got singled out, he could burn everyone else." Olivia looked to Rodriguez. The slight tightening of her jaw said, "New and big." "Where?" Rodriguez asked. "Secured host, access limited to senior command and union officers," Miller answered. "I can give you the protocols." He hesitated. "It lists every victim, names, dates, falsified narratives, everything. At least 6 uniformed service members in the last year alone. They kept receipts in case loyalty ever cracked. The implication landed like a gavel. If real, this would be not only prosecutorial gold, but a roadmap for redress, hundreds of cases reopened, lives repaired." Olivia studied him. "Why now?" Miller finally met her eyes. "Because you didn't break. They threw threats, money, smears, and you stood. You made Ward talk. Maybe I can too." The meeting ended without triumph, only gravity. Olivia felt weariness more than relief. The rot ran deeper than imagined. Within hours, federal techs, using Miller's access keys, seized the hidden server. What they found was staggering. A ledger of 700 plus tainted incidents, meticulously documented by perpetrators to ensure collective silence. It was mutual assured destruction, rendered as spreadsheets and logs, every unconstitutional stop, every lost recording, every pretext crafted to meet monthly quotas. That database cracked the investigation wide open. Denials collapsed, timelines aligned, inside jokes became evidentiary exhibits. The scheme, long whispered, finally had an index, timestamps, and authors. Momentum flipped from inquiry to action. DOJ moved immediately. Chief Harlan was placed on leave pending federal charges, civil rights violations, conspiracy, obstruction. 11 other leaders faced similar counts. The city announced a civilian oversight body with real teeth, and the governor tapped a special prosecutor to re-examine every contaminated case for relief. For Olivia, vindication arrived threaded with grief. The system's corrosion exceeded what she'd endured, encompassing hundreds who had neither Sentinel-9 nor a uniform's credibility. "This was never just me," she told Ramirez while reviewing updates. "It's for everyone who had no protocol to trigger and still kept their dignity." Ramirez nodded. "Exposure starts the story, not ends it. Structural fixes require stamina." Olivia had been wrestling with that very question. What comes after the breach? The Pentagon billet, once frozen, was reoffered alongside her promotion to captain. Yet another possibility tugged, building something permanent between uniforms and communities. That evening, an encrypted note pinged Olivia's secure inbox. "Sender, Sentinel. What you set in motion, many of us wanted but feared. The database doubled as blackmail and as a time capsule for this day. It's here because you refused silence. Signed simply, a friend inside. Olivia exhaled, hand brushing the fading scar. She realized the true breaking point wasn't the database or Miller's confession. It was the moment she tapped her watch, insisting injustice wasn't inevitable. Sentinel 9 had summoned help and detonated denial. The question now, would transformation take root, or would the system rehard its shell once the headlines dimmed? 6 months after that stop, Charleston's landscape was unrecognizable. The DOJ's pattern or practice probe ended in a consent decree, binding reforms, federal supervision, transparent data, independent audits. Harlan resigned in disgrace, charged federally. Miller pled to civil rights violations and obstruction, 10 years. Ward, cooperating, received 3, with review for early release. Leadership was gutted and rebuilt. An interim chief arrived from outside, retired FBI civil rights investigator with an unbendable spine. The Civilian Oversight Board, once temporary, became permanent with expanded authority. The most visible emblem of change stood at a podium in the department's community room, Captain Olivia Carter, addressing recruits and officers together. A uniform, police or military, carries privilege and weight, she said. It brands you as a trustee of public power. That trust is sacred. Abuse it, and authority curdles into tyranny. The training she designed, mandatory statewide, prioritized bias awareness and de escalation in police military encounters, with broader application to every civilian interaction. Academies across the Southeast adopted the curriculum. National adoption was under review. Olivia's path here had surprised even her. Post investigation, offers flooded in. The Pentagon Post, lucrative consulting, political flirtations. She pitched something different, a joint military civilian oversight initiative, bridging institutions to outlast personalities and harden reforms into durable practice. With buy in from Navy leadership and DOJ, the initiative expanded audits, scenario based training, independent hotlines, community councils with binding input. Accountability isn't punishment, Olivia told a full room. It's the precondition for trust. Without it, intent doesn't matter. Outcomes do. Heads nodded, some reluctantly, some with relief at rules replacing improvisation. Among the attendees sat Ward, temporarily released to participate. His testimony had been pivotal, his acceptance of consequences equally so. He listened, jaw set, as Olivia reframed authority as stewardship. In a back row, young recruits scribbled notes, absorbing a message their predecessors had been taught to ignore or undermine. Afterward, reporters clustered outside while families toured exhibits on constitutional policing. A wall displayed before and after stats, stops down, complaints down, clearance rates steady. Reform hadn't broken policing, it had clarified purpose. A recruit murmured to another, "Authority is earned daily." The other nodded, and documented every single time. Inside a side room, Olivia briefed supervisors on consent decree milestones, data transparency, early intervention systems, discipline matrices. Consistency beats charisma, she said. The goal isn't viral virtue, it's boring fairness. A sergeant raised a hand. And when the cameras aren't rolling? Olivia smiled thinly. Assume they are, or act as if they should be. Back at Kings Bay, the Navy folded lessons learned into leadership courses, ethics under pressure, interagency protocols, sentinel adjacent documentation practices for sailors off base. Olivia guest lectured, "Dignity is your shield, procedure is your sword. When both are forged, misconduct bends." Instructors captured the line for future cohorts. It felt like doctrine. In Charleston, neighborhoods once labeled high-value zones, community meetings shifted tenor. Residents pressed detailed questions, armed with released datasets. Officers answered with timelines instead of platitudes. Where hostility had lived, cautious candor took root. It wasn't harmony, but it was adult conversation anchored by numbers, policy, and the right to demand both. The city codified the oversight board's authority, subpoena power, policy veto in limited lanes, mandatory publication of stop and search data, Quarterly forums became standing room only. The first year's report read like a ledger of course corrections and unresolved work, no victory laps, no amnesia, just progress measured in metrics and testimonies that finally counted. Olivia kept her media footprint small, preferring classrooms and working sessions to studios. She met quietly with families whose cases were being reopened because of the database. Some cried, some raged, some simply nodded, exhausted. All wanted the same thing: for the next person in a uniform, any uniform, to meet them with respect. She also visited Ward's family under federal escort, delivering a message she never expected to carry. Accountability and redemption are not opposites. Tell your kids the truth, she said, not to excuse, but to explain what changed you. He nodded, eyes rimmed red. Change, it turned out, required different kinds of courage. During a joint session, a recruit asked, "Captain, how do we avoid becoming another statistic?" Olivia answered plainly, "Slow down. Document everything. Check each other. If a metric rewards shortcuts, challenge the metric. And remember the oath is to people, not numbers." Pen scratched. The room, for once, felt teachable. After the presentation, Ward approached, hesitant. "Captain Carter," he said, voice unsure, "thank you for letting me participate. A lot of folks think I shouldn't be here." Olivia regarded him evenly. "Redemption isn't about deserving, Mr. Ward. It's about practice. Your testimony helped expose harm. Now keep proving who you're choosing to be. Your continued work helps ensure it never happens again." Ward stared at the floor. "I replay that day every night. What I did, what I didn't." "Good," Olivia said, not unkindly. "Remember. Use it. Let it steer every choice." As Ward stepped away, Admiral Ramirez approached. "Powerful session, Captain." "I noticed you never mentioned forgiveness," Ramirez added. Olivia's smile was faint. "Forgiveness is personal, Admiral. I can forgive without erasing. I can cooperate with former adversaries without pretending it didn't happen. Real transformation requires memory." Ramirez nodded. "The Pentagon called again, still courting you for the strategy role." "My answer hasn't changed. My work here isn't finished." What followed reached far beyond Charleston. The clandestine incident database, once insurance for corrupt officers, became a roadmap for restitution. Under Olivia's guidance, JAG attorneys and civil rights lawyers launched a foundation providing free representation to every identified victim. Case by case, the ledger of harm began to convert into remedies. Hundreds of wrongful convictions were overturned, expunged, or pardoned. Millions in compensation flowed to people whose careers and livelihoods had been derailed by discriminatory enforcement. More consequentially, Sentinel-9 expanded across all branches, providing every service member immediate protection and escalation when facing potential civil rights violations, no matter their rank, base, or city. What began as Olivia's proposal became standard practice. Specialized training on rights, activation protocols, and evidence preservation for all personnel. Resistance persisted. National unions denounced reforms as anti-police. Partisan outlets framed them as political theater. Some military leaders worried special protections could strain relations with local authorities. Olivia answered those doubts with results. Charleston's crime rate didn't rise. It dipped slightly. After an initial slump, officer morale improved as toxic incentives faded, replaced by transparent policies and fair evaluation. Independent surveys showed community trust climbing sharply. Even skeptics found the metrics difficult to dispute. Arguments wilted under data tracked, published, and relentlessly audited. The most striking proof came from an unexpected source. Former Chief Harlan, awaiting trial, requested a meeting. After deliberation, Olivia agreed. "I thought I was protecting my officers," he confessed, bewildered by his past choices. "I called it public safety. I didn't see discrimination. I called it effectiveness." Olivia listened. "When did you realize you were wrong?" He paused. "Not when evidence appeared. Not when charges landed. When I saw the faces in that database. Hundreds of lives cracked by practices I allowed. That's when it hit. The conversation reinforced Olivia's conviction. Policies matter, but perspective shifts transform institutions. The national debate moved from rhetoric to law. Congress passed the Military Personnel Civil Rights Protection Act, establishing clear standards for police military interactions and stiffer penalties for violations against service members. States modeled broader protections for all residents, turning a single case into statutory change with real teeth. Olivia's own arc changed too. The lieutenant who triggered Sentinel 9 out of necessity was now a captain whose influence crossed into civilian institutions. The reluctant public figure embraced the platform to build systems, not headlines, turning one moment of survival into machinery for durable accountability. As the session emptied, Olivia reviewed notes for tomorrow's training when a young black recruit approached cautiously. Captain Carter, I joined because of you, because you proved systems can change if enough people insist. Olivia smiled. Systems change when people inside them change. Remember that when convenience challenges what's right alone again, she reflected on the months since the stop, not just institutional shifts, but personal reckonings. The scar at her temple had faded, yet remained visible, a small, stubborn witness to both injury and resolve. Transformation wasn't a ribbon cutting, it was a practice. Progress, then proof. Proof, then trust. The foundation was real. 1 year to the day after she'd been cuffed beside her car, Olivia stood at that same patch of Interstate 26. No plaque, no marker. The asphalt looked ordinary, but the ground held meaning, a private trauma, and the start of a public reckoning. She arrived early, before rush hour noise, to measure the distance between then and now. So much had shifted: policy, leadership, expectations. The Charleston Police Department, once armored by silence, had been re engineered. The interim reform chief stepped aside months ago for a permanent leader who embodied that shift. The first black woman to lead the department, Chief Regina Taylor, a former civil rights attorney and policing researcher, Olivia's first recommendation, took command. Under Taylor, the department became a national learning lab, hosting delegations from coast to coast. The old insurance database sparked a full audit of implicated arrests and convictions. To date, 217 convictions were vacated, with more pending. A consent decree compensation fund paid over $15 million to wrongfully targeted residents. Officer Jason Miller served his federal sentence in Pennsylvania. As part of his plea, he testified against a dozen colleagues who'd fueled discriminatory practices, exposing the system he once protected. More surprisingly, he began speaking remotely to police academies about the culture that shaped him and the incentives that rewarded harm. Officer Stephen Ward, after 18 months of a 3-year term, won early release to work full-time with the Police Reform Commission, using contrition as leverage against institutional resistance. Olivia's path shifted too. Promoted to captain, she accepted a special assignment: design and deliver the Military Personnel Protection Initiative, expanding Sentinel 9 into a comprehensive shield for service members while strengthening civil-military relationships. The protocol that safeguarded her now safeguarded dozens of others who faced similar roadside reckonings. A black SUV eased onto the shoulder. General Harrison, recently promoted, stepped out. I suspected I'd find you here, he said gently. Anniversary stops aren't your style, Captain. Olivia smiled. Not a pilgrimage, sir. A reminder of what was, he asked. And what changed, she replied. Both. The Medal of Freedom ceremony is at 1400, he said. We should head back if you want prep time. The announcement had stunned her. She viewed her actions as duty, not heroism. But she understood the symbolism, not just recognition of courage, but of a movement toward accountability with her face on it. There's something else, Harrison added. The president's creating a National Oversight Commission. He wants you to lead it. Olivia had anticipated the offer. The mandate investigates civil rights violations nationwide, and enforce remedies, a chance to scale Charleston's lessons. I'd have to step off active duty, she noted. A leave of absence has been pre-approved with guaranteed reinstatement at rank, Harrison said. Another vehicle rolled up, a Charleston PD SUV. Chief Taylor approached, uniform immaculate. I thought you'd be here, she said. Today matters for all of us. The three stood quietly, honoring the road that started an awakening. I brought news, Taylor said. The council voted unanimously this morning to adopt the Carter Protocols as permanent policy. Named over Olivia's objections, the measures went beyond the consent decree, tightening accountability and transparency in ways that outlasted any single mayor, chief, or headline cycle. Body cameras can't be deactivated during public interactions, Taylor continued. All uses of force get civilian review. Demographic tracking for stops and arrests is mandatory, with quarterly public reporting. The surprise wasn't the vote, it was the union's support. They cited better community relations, fewer complaints, and calmer shifts under clear, consistent rules. That, more than any medal, showed the deepest change. Reforms embraced from within rather than imposed from above. Olivia's secure line buzzed. Attorney General, she said after a brief call, the expanded database review is complete. Similar patterns identified in 17 departments across 8 states. Federal investigations begin next week. Harrison nodded, thoughtful. What started here won't end here. It never does, Olivia replied. Injustice anywhere threatens justice everywhere. That afternoon at the ceremony, leaders from the military, civil rights groups, reform coalitions, and families of those harmed by discriminatory policing filled the hall, a braided audience for a braided victory. In dress whites, Olivia stood as the president placed the medal around her neck, the citation crediting extraordinary courage and institution-level change. In her short remarks, she deflected credit. This represents what's possible when we refuse inevitability, when we insist our institutions live the values they proclaim. At a private reception, unexpected guests arrived. Ward, temporarily cleared to attend, stood with his family. Captain Carter, he said, we wanted to thank you for showing me a path to redemption I didn't deserve, but intend to earn. Olivia exchanged a glance with his wife, remembering the note she'd sent months earlier. Redemption isn't declared, Olivia said softly. It's practiced. Another surprise approached. Miller's daughter, a senior at Howard. My father asked me to tell you your forgiveness mattered. He's speaking to cadets about his failures and how to avoid them. Olivia had visited him 3 months earlier. No easy absolution, but acknowledgement of restitution. He has a long road, she told the daughter. Walking it takes courage. Tell him I recognize that. Then came Sentinel, the anonymous whistleblower, no longer anonymous. A former CPDIT specialist, he'd quietly compiled evidence for years, waiting for the right conditions. Your resolve created the opening, he told Olivia. The moment finally arrived. A week later, Olivia returned for a different milestone, graduating the first academy class trained entirely under Carter protocols. At Chief Taylor's invitation, she delivered the commencement address. This badge symbolizes authority and obligation, she said. Your power exists to protect, especially the vulnerable. Accountability is what makes that protection real. Among the audience, Miller and Ward, present through rehabilitation programs. Their attendance represented something Olivia hadn't expected, proof that individuals who once embodied the problem could contribute to the solution. Reform wasn't merely policy, it was personal, relational, repeated, harder to start than to maintain, yet possible for those committed. When the ceremony ended, Olivia paused at the edge of the stage, considering the improbable road. From a shoulder on I-26 to a doctrine, from a wound to a syllabus. Sentinel-9 began as emergency response. It had become a catalyst for exposing and repairing harm, layered over decades. The work wasn't finished, she had no illusions. Systems resist. Power hides. Progress draws backlash. Reforms are contested and require maintenance. Yet facing the new officers as they raised their hands, Olivia felt something unexpected, a sturdier hope, earned, not imagined, cemented by metrics, policies, and changed minds. Your commitment to justice begins now, she said in closing. When it's tested, let your courage hold. The outro rolled across social feeds. If this story moved you, share it. If accountability matters, keep pressing. If you've witnessed discrimination, speak. Narratives didn't fix systems, but they recruited hands to push. Later, she asked graduates what resonated most. Answers varied: the database's honesty, the consent decree's architecture, the idea that boring fairness is the goal. Would you resist a broken metric? Someone asked themselves aloud. Olivia smiled. Questions like that were reforms taking root underneath the skin of an institution. She reminded them, accountability isn't revenge, it's trust's foundation. On-screen prompts echoed, like, subscribe, comment with a story of courage. But the real subscription was to practice. Slow decisions, documented encounters, peer checks, course corrections. In policing and the military, integrity was always a habit before it became a headline. A final montage played: rooftops at dawn, roll call rooms, classrooms, community forums, courtroom doors. Change begins when we refuse inevitability, the caption read. Together we build accountability. The message wasn't cinematic, it was architectural. Olivia preferred it that way: less lightning, more wiring, current flowing where it never had before. Remember, the narrator closed, true reform starts when evidence is undeniable and resolve is unbreakable. Olivia's journey showed how pressure, properly applied, bends institutions. Her stand sparked ripples: victims heard, officers retrained, leaders replaced, incentives rebuilt. The system hadn't been toppled, it had been retooled. Imperfectly, incompletely, but undeniably. Which part spoke to you? The post asked viewers. Where did you find courage? Comment courage if you believe one person can widen a path for many. Algorithms would do their quiet work, but in classrooms and briefings, the substance continued: policies tested, data released, audits scheduled, dignity treated as non negotiable. Share this if someone you love needs the reminder, the feed concluded. Refusing inevitability is contagious. Olivia closed her laptop and gathered tomorrow's lesson plans: de escalation labs, bias drills, body cam reliability checks. Behind each exercise was a single premise: when people know the standard and see it modeled, many will meet it. Across town, Chief Taylor finalized a quarterly report: stops down, disparities shrinking, clearance rates intact. The union appended a note endorsing Carter protocols as stabilizing for both officers and communities. The numbers didn't sing, they spoke quietly, consistently, like the hum of a machine tuned closer to purpose.